I'll repeat the brief introduction. So welcome to the inaugural Marketing Excellence, B2B Marketing Excellence podcast. My name is Mike Darnell, and with me I have...
My name is Thomas Goldsmith. I'm the marketing guy. I've been here for a few months now, so I'm just helping Mike out. And happy to be here, happy to support. Sawadee Kha, hello.
Good morning, everyone. We're going to be chatting for the next, I'd say 30 minutes or so about B2B marketing in times of turbulence. And we have some questions that we received from you guys. We've been collecting over the past 2 weeks. We're going to look at a couple of those questions. And I think we can start. So insofar as this goes, we're going to have a few slides of introduction to this company, very brief, and then we'll dive right in. So Vimy is a digital agency. We've been around since 2010. We do consulting, design, and development for branding, websites, apps, and digital marketing. We have over 250 client organizations that we've worked with, and we'll just show a 60-second video that kind of sets the scene for who we are and what we are, and then go back to this.
Okay. So, without the ad.
Without the ad. There we go. Hi, we're Vimy, a digital agency specialized at creating online success for companies like yours. Since 2010, we've helped over 250 companies grow their online revenue and streamline their digital operations. Our specialty are invisible giants, B2B companies in industry, manufacturing, and finance that operate on a vast scale but aren't well known by the general public. Over the past decade, we've delivered designs to True, Siam Commercial Bank, and Sumitomo. We've created sites and web apps for organizations like Dunlop, Kirloskar, and the United Nations Development Programme. And we've supported the likes of Microsoft, 7-Eleven, and AON with marketing collateral for a variety of needs, audiences, and mediums. Contact us today for consulting, design, and development, and guarantee the success of your next digital and marketing projects. Cool. I think that kind of sets the scene, and we're good. We work with invisible giants, primarily companies that are all around us, and we don't think about them very often, like the company that made the cement in the wall here behind us, and that's all B2B. I think in terms of our values, and I think this is where things start becoming interesting and we can start diving into our topic matter. Mm-hmm. The values that we follow are primarily the ones that are important are trust and friendship, and I think that speaks to what B2B relationships and what hasn't changed in B2B. B2B is all about relationships.
Yeah.
It's about building a long-term understanding, hopefully, between a vendor and a client, where both sides know that there's a lot at stake. These are usually very large transactions, and both sides know that these are usually long-term relationships. If you're providing parts from one factory to another for the production of this mouse, let's say, the LED lights here are manufactured by another factory from the one that makes the plastic. The guy that makes the mouse, he needs to rely on the fact that the guy that makes the LEDs is going to be there for years and providing the right LEDs at the right amount so that he can keep on delivering the mice that he's making to his customers.
It's like building long-lasting bridges, connections, friendships.
Weddings, right? People say we're getting married, right? It's something you hear a lot in B2B negotiations.
We're not actually getting
married. We're not actually getting married, exactly. But that's the language that people use a lot, and I think that also holds for what is one of the foundational challenges. And we can skip through these. Okay, so we're gonna pause, I think, on this slide because that's where the challenge is, right? Building the relationships for the long term when you move to online. And I think that the the challenges that we see, that kind of relates to the maybe talking to the first question that we had, which was, I'm a B2B marketer. My solutions are quite complicated, and I need my counterpart, my customer, to pay a lot of attention to my solution so that they understand it in depth. They understand how I'm better than the competitors, and they make the choice to buy me. So how has that been impacted? We know that that's foundational for B2B. How is that impacted by the pandemic and the subsequent shift online? And I think that there are a few things that we can talk about that are very important to understand. And I think the first one is the experience that we just had with the video before, or what's happening in this room, and that is the understanding that the way we interact in a space when we are physically in the same space, and the way we interact when the space is digital is very different, and it's different at the biological level. So let's explain that for a moment. Thomas and I are in the same room, and we're talking, and most of the communication, most of what's dictating the mood in the room is actually not what I'm saying. I could speak total nonsense right now, talk about the shoes of octopi and how they like eating peanut butter, and Thomas is smiling and he's having a good experience because my body language and my tone and the setting are making it very clear that I'm not insane. I'm just joking. I'm just joking a little bit, right?
Sometimes I question that.
And online, that 70% of information is being collected by Thomas's mind about how this is going. Is this a good experience for me right now? All that doesn't happen online. And what that means is our brains are very finely attuned. We are social animals, and our brains are very finely attuned machines at understanding social situations.
Yeah.
Right? And what's happening when you're in an online meeting or in a Zoom meeting, your brain is trying to do that. It's trying to make out the best of the situation, but it's starved for 70% of the inputs that it usually has in order to decipher that. And that means that the meetings very quickly become really, really difficult to concentrate in. We talk about Zoom fatigue, and people wonder, why am I experiencing this Zoom fatigue? Why am I so tired in online meetings? I was sitting in my underpants in my living room. This is much easier than going in a plane, flying to another country, into a boardroom and sitting. Why am I so tired?
Yeah.
And people were blaming themselves. I must be not good at this Zoom stuff. It's not you, right? It's a foundational. It's how we're all built. We're all not good at the Zoom stuff because we all suffer the same problem. We're starved for information. So how do we counter that?
Yeah.
And I think that's where the answers start coming in. If previously in B2B you could have these long 3-4 hour meetings with breaks and you'd hash stuff out, that would be great. You cannot do that online.
No.
You have maybe 45 minutes max of a session, and then you schedule another session. And so whatever negotiations that are long and challenging and require detail-oriented thinking, you break those down into piecemeal meetings. Every time you handle one topic, you have a schedule that you pre-plan, and that's how you succeed, because there is no way around this. It's a biological hard limit. The same way that you can't go for 4 days without sleep, the same way that you can't go for 2 days without drink, you cannot maintain attention for hours on a Zoom meeting. Impossible to do.
So I think what you're saying is that instead of having really long meetings with many different agendas going on, break it up into little chunks and do it 45 minutes, half an hour at a time. That way, because we're all human, our attention span is quite low. So for example, e-commerce, you go there, your attention span on e-commerce is very, very short. You're really impatient online, which we've seen the adaptation of since COVID. Everyone's online now. You might go e-commerce, In real life, you wouldn't put stuff into your shopping carts, 10, 20 things, go to the checkout, and just walk away.
Bye! I'm not interested anymore, see ya!
Yeah.
That's very correct. I think what you're saying, and we're going to take this to the next bullet, is we behave differently online than we do offline. When we're alone, we don't think about it, right? When I, like you said, that e-commerce example, I don't feel bad when I leave the shopping cart full at the e-commerce website, but I'd never do that in a real shop. I'd never walk up to the supermarket with my cart full of stuff and say, oh, you know what? I decided I don't want to do this anymore. I'm leaving, right? So I think it's important to understand when you're moving things online. Okay, what are the changes? What's foundational? So for B2B, the relationship is foundational. That has to stay. And what is transitory and has to be adapted to the format. So long meetings, transitory, cannot happen in this format. And I think if we continue with that, we can apply that to other things that relate to the complicated solutions. I think you can upgrade that to the question of how you reveal any kind of information. So again, in an offline situation, I could show up with a prospectus or with a presentation, and I could sense the room, as we are even in this webinar. I skipped a few slides when we started over here. I sensed that this was not important for this interaction, and we got into it. Same applies to any kind of Marcom that you're producing. You have different phases in the funnel. You have a very limited attention span at every point in the funnel, but that attention span is going to be focused on different aspects of you and your solution at different steps along the funnel. So early on in the funnel, right, basically people just want to know, is this a partner that I can sit in the same room with?
So how do you know if that's the right
you first want to have the trust, right? First, let's establish trust and credibility. All your primary interactions with your potential partner at the initial phases are dedicated to establishing the fact that you're trustworthy, credible, and should be considered as a partner. You get to be in the room and present your solution. And so, if I had to be if I'm doing a marketing piece and I'm planning it for that initial awareness phase, it's going to go into my ad, into my advertising, or it's going to be a banner that I'm putting somewhere. It's really about establishing credibility. So from our own example, even looking at this slide, right, just by placing those logos on the right-hand side, I'm already saying, you might not know me at all, but you probably know True if you're in industrial manufacturing. You probably know Kirloskar and Alchemy. Those guys chose to work with us, and that apparently, or hopefully, speaks well of who we are. Same thing applies to your materials. Initially, you're only working on trust. Later on, when you pass that, that's when you start having materials that talk about the solution and the details of the solution. And when you're moving past that, you can really go into the nitty-gritty of, okay, well, how are we going to structure the deal? How are we going to provide the service? How are we going to deploy? No point about talking about how you're going to deploy when somebody doesn't even know if they're going to trust you yet. So this approach, this phased approach of the right information at the right time in consideration of the very brief attention span that the counterpart has, and the unfortunate reality that they are in shopping cart mode.
You know what that reminds me? It reminds me of the 4 Ps of marketing. Product, price, place, promotion. The right product at the right place, with the right message, with the right promotion. So it's just, everything.
The right thing at the right time.
The right thing at the right time, exactly. Yeah.
Okay, so I think we're kind of beginning to make some headway here. If I had to give examples for the type of content that I put at the top of the funnel, a 30 to 60 second video that just introduces the company. This is who we are, these are our accomplishments so far, this is what we do. Really, really succinct. Start the meeting with that, great, fantastic. Start the relationship with that, great, fantastic. You can put that in your email signature. just a link to this very, very short introductory clip, and then anytime anybody in your organization is sending out an email anywhere, people can quickly gain the context of what the conversation is about.
In less than 1 minute.
Exactly, in less than 1 minute.
Why
Okay.
is it less than 1 minute?
We know for a fact that basically for every 30 seconds of video viewership, you're losing about 50% of your audience.
50%.
Every 30 seconds. So really, I mean, repeatedly we've had people come to us and say, I really need to say this and this and this and this and this in my marketing piece. It's great that you really need to say that, but your audience really doesn't need to hear it. And I mean, again, it goes back to what you said. People are in there, assume that they're sitting there with, you know, a whole bunch of other tabs open, a lot of other things that they want to do, and you really need to win their attention. You need to earn it, win it, and keep it, maintain it. Okay, I think we can move on we're about 15 minutes in. I think we can move to another question. The next question that we got was very often in B2B processes, the team that is doing the pitching isn't exposed to all the decision makers. So you go and have a meeting with a procurement officer and, you know, maybe a few members of the operations team that are related to whatever it is that you're selling. But the CEO or the managing director or some other high, big decision maker, they're not in the room, and they're going to get the information from the people that report to them. How do you cope with that? So
That's a good question. That's a good question.
I think here again, you know, there's things that are online and things that are offline. In the offline world, we still had this. We just knew that we had to somehow either get invited to that meeting or make a good enough impression on the subordinates so that they convey the message properly convey the message to the big decision maker. And when you move that online, when you're working in these turbulent times, it's easy to understand, or it should be relatively easy to estimate what the concerns of every role and decision maker in the room are. You know, the guy who's call it vice president of operations.
Yes.
What he wants to know is how's the service for your product. So great, make a slide or make a marketing piece that's dedicated to that person. And if they're not in the room, ask the people that are in the room, hey, we know that your operations director is Mr. So-and-so and so-and-so, and we know that he's key to this decision. In respect of Mr. So-and-so, we've prepared this short presentation for him. It's really related to the issues that he needs that probably concern him. Can you please make sure that this is for him? And for your finance person, here, we made these couple of slides. And for your compliance person here, we've made these couple of slides. And be very, very open and transparent about the fact that you acknowledge all these roles, you acknowledge all these people, and you've bothered to prepare some material for them, and you'd appreciate it if the message gets on.
You're seeing things in their perspective, how it would be feasible if the marketing strategy would fit into their operationals and how the business is run.
You basically understand that the decision isn't made by a team. Everybody in that team has their own little interests and challenges, and if you're able to help each one of these team members score a win in their domain. So the finance guy shows that, you know, it's cheaper and that the payment terms are better. The operations team guy shows that, you know, the service is more frequent and handles more issues, etc., etc., etc. You really emphasize that for every member of the client partner's team, there is a viable win, and you clarify that for them. They're going to make the decision. They're going to vote in favor, even if they're not in the room. The problem is when your solution compares to another, and some things are better, and some things are, you know, the competitor is better. How do you weight it so that you're still chosen? you understand that there are different considerations, and there are different in different companies, different members of the different teams have different weight. So if it's a company that the operations is key, that's the guy that you really need to impress, even if the price is a little higher. And we actually know that for B2B, despite the fact that we always whine about everybody wants the cheapest price, realistically, what everybody really wants is the best long-term relationship-based solution. And people are willing to pay a little bit more. The guy that makes these mouses, is willing to pay a little bit more for that LED lamp if he knows that you've got 3, 4, 5 years of absolute certainty that he's going to get those LED lamps as promised, as delivered, and he has peace of mind. That is paramount for B2B. We've seen that in studies by a few organizations.
You're building bridges for long-term relationships with everyone. That's what marketing is.
Yeah, but it's really about understanding that B2B is about the long term. It's any piece where you're focusing and you're highlighting the short-term benefit. For most B2B marketing pieces, it's probably not the best way to structure it. Let's look at another issue. So long buying cycles. How do we cope with long buying cycles, which are usually?
So what are long buying cycles for those that don't know what are?
Sure. So if I'm going to go and buy this cup, right? The buying cycle is very short. I go into the shop, I pick the cup, I pull out my wallet, I pay, we're done. If we're talking about a company like Kirloskar, who manufacture huge industrial pumps, and they're now pitching for a new power station. The buying cycle for that is probably years. From the moment that they first get a whiff of the fact that this power plant is planned, and they start approaching the correct decision makers until the time where they're actually going to a buying process. It's years. So how do you cope with that in a turbulent time? I think you need to identify all the steps that usually companies that are doing buying cycles at such long terms, they're quite good at this. But the issues that you really need to look at is, first of all, account for the fact that members on your team and members on the other team may change over time.
Yeah.
So you really need to document where you are in the process very carefully. If it was offline and there are a few people in the room, and one of them then changes their role, so okay, if both Channon and I went to the meeting with a counterpart, and then I went on to a different job and Channon stayed, and I'm replaced by somebody, then we still have Channon. That's okay. But if it's all online, you really need to be very strict with people in terms of how they document meetings in the CRM. The CRM becomes really important over here, and tight minute meetings, very detailed, become very meaningful over here.
You just have to be more organized for everyone's sake.
You have to be super meticulous, so that if somebody transitions, you can bring in their replacement and say, look, here is everything that's happened. These are the members of the team on the other side. We have Mr. Smith and Miss Johnson and Mrs. Orange. Miss Orange is always very, very concerned about operations, and is quite a bit of a challenge in the room. But if we take the time, if we sit down at the time and we spend a little bit more time working with her, she actually is an ally. If you have all that documented in the CRM, then when people are replaced, it's relatively easy to continue the process. But if you're every time starting from scratch, every time you start from scratch, you're risking losing all the effort that's been put into this large transaction so far, and it's very tragic.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And then from your own sales team, the reality is that people enter sales, junior salespeople, early 20s, mid 20s. They're go-getters. They they're hungry, and so they want to make bank. And the problem is that with a B2B cycle, we're talking about months for a transaction. That young associate is not going to be seeing a lot of money in commissions in the first few months of their employment because they didn't close any deals yet. And so you're facing a challenge where they might churn. And then everything you spent on training them, all the knowledge that you transferred, all the salaries that you've paid, it's basically wasted all that money. So how do you,
It's communication, isn't it? You've got communication is, most people don't think about it much, but communication is very important. Being clear with what the task is, what's being communicated, what's required, and knowing the bigger picture behind why this action is being taken. So you've got to be very clear, very precise in everything that you do if you're working in a big organization, especially in a team. I
think that this is the impact of this as the marketing director is when you're hiring these new marketers or these new salespeople, what you're actually telling them is, look, I want you to be very clear on the fact that for the first 6 months, 7 months, 8 months, you might not close your first deal. Are you okay with that? Can you live with that? We will support you, we will help you, whatever, down the line everything's going to be great. But you need to be aware that this is a challenge that you're going to be facing. And if you can do that effectively, then you're okay. I think we're nearing, maybe we have time for one more
too many to choose from.
Yeah.
Choose this one.
Let's see if there's one. So let's talk about the last one, which I think is foundational, is the question of ROI. How are we getting ROI for our marketing? Everybody wants to know, how are we getting ROI for our marketing? And I think it's very early days for understanding how people are getting ROI from marketing from this transition online. Again, if we're talking about long buying cycles, right? If you're talking about a transaction that takes years, we've not yet had years from the pandemic, right? It's just the first batch of deals, like post-pandemic, is being closed right now. But I think what you see in terms of, again, if I'm quoting the study from the Digital Marketing Institute, where the poll that they ran, what B2B marketers are saying in terms of where they're getting the best return on investment is their search engine optimization. They're, interesting enough, paid social. That to me is kind of a surprise.
Paid social?
Yeah. I don't know really how I would, maybe LinkedIn. Maybe people are getting good results on LinkedIn.
Maybe LinkedIn and Facebook, yeah.
And paid search. The places where people are saying that they're getting really poor return on investment is mass media, so radio and TV is really gone down.
Do people still use radio?
I mean, I'm quoting the study here, but just to put things in perspective, the ranking for radio is 1%, whereas for paid social it's 31%. So it's really very vast differences in that study.
This is 21st century now, not the 1980s. Yeah.
Outdoor advertising also quite low. Honestly, I mean, I think maybe the study here combined a little bit of B2B and B2C, because I don't really see too much outdoor advertising being effective for. Well, maybe, I don't know. I guess people know what they're doing. But it's really stark. All the online platforms are 30, 20. And then everything that's offline is single digits and low single digits, nothing above 4%. So that's where people are saying they're getting their return on investment. And we can put the link to the study we'll put that on we'll share that on our
we can share it after
this.
Yeah.
And that's about it. For today, we're going to be running. So I don't know if there's any questions from anybody in the audience. It looks like we're we're now with 4 viewers. If anybody has anything to wrap up or comments or questions, it's okay. If not, I think we talked about the fact that attention spans are on decline.
Yeah.
So 30 minutes, I think this is good. This is what we're aiming for. And we will be doing our next webinar same time, same day, a month from now. So Friday, I think it's the 4th Friday or 3rd Friday of March.
Let's see. March. 4th Friday of March.
4th Friday of March.
Yes.
Okay. So 4th Friday of March. Look forward to seeing everybody then. Thank you very much for being such a fantastic audience. And we'll see you
Next time.
Exactly. Next time on the B2B Marketing Excellence podcast. Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right. So now how do we...